Alrighty, what's up, guys, and welcome back. Today, we are essentially taking another look at one of my first tracks, and well, actually, probably my first good track. Obviously, not my first release, but probably one of my best releases, and still the most popular one. Um, Essentially, today's video is going to be kind of a re-recording of something I did a while back, which was kind of a behind the scenes of this track. But because at that time I wasn't really able to record audio, that's now changed. So we're testing this out for the first time today, seeing how this goes. It should go pretty well. I mean, I've tested it uh, already, obviously, before recording it. So yeah, I apologize if the script here isn't perfect. I'm kind of winging this, but yeah, let's speak to a few aspects of this track. So, what I had covered in the first video was speaking to the kick and the bass. Now, the reason I did that is because a lot of the focus of my time and my effort, and uh, of this track as a whole, its essence was the kick and the bass together. That gelling of the two elements with the high release and build up of tension. So that was my focus. It's a pretty long track. It's about 4.5 minutes. There's like three, I call them three drops. There's like a intro drop, a main drop, and then a subsequent second drop. The first one is only has certain aspects of the main song, whereas the second two have the main elements, most of them. And yeah, what I wanted to really put focus on were the kick and the bass elements. So the first part that I spoke to, or what I worked on from the beginning, was obviously I start with the kick. Kick and all the drum accessories come together, and then the bass came in. But getting, as I said, the kick and the bass to gel is important. So kick and all the drums that I have, grouped here are one thing, but once you start getting to the bass, you realize that your kick needs to work with that bass. So um, figuring out that bass was step one. And I mean, not much for me to speak to here in terms of the programming. I do have two kicks here, layered one on top of the other. So the main one was this Oliver Heldens like sample from Splice. And this one, as you can see here, is it's kind of the bulk. It's kind of your sub kick. It's got most of the low frequency in there, and above it was kind of a brighter one, but I kept it very minimal. I mean, if you look at just like the frequency of that one, yeah, it's a lot more in the higher end, but it's not bringing too much, and it was very low anyway. So a lot of it was coming from that main kick. And in terms of just mixing it, I mean, I kept the actual samples straightforward. The actual main sub one, I cleaned it up a bit. I faded it out because I didn't want too much length on it. I did. I always usually include the KSHMR plugin for Essentials Kick. This one is free, and it adds so much to your kick. So I worked this on this track a lot. It added a lot again to that kick, and I had it automated to come on only throughout the heavy parts, or like the really well, essentially the three drops that I spoke to. But the rest of the time it's turned off. So at the beginning of the track, the kick is not even at its full potential, and I'm pretty sure I even have it automated to cut at about 60 hertz. So what you're hearing at the beginning is nowhere near what you hear, let's say, for the rest of the like the kick here as opposed to kick here. It's got a lot less in it, right? And I mean, this is my first track, so there's a lot of stuff here that I'll even look at now and I'm like, oh, I should clean this up. So, I mean, just for the EQ, I should have probably taken out at least 30 from the 30 hertz, scooped that out from the low end. But I mean, it's not really important. I took it out probably in the mastering section. But anywho, that's the kick. Not much there to speak to. Nowadays, I usually have two separate channels, one for my high kick and one for my low. In this case, they're kind of together. Again, this is one of my earlier tracks. I've changed that since, but nonetheless, not too much going on here in terms of even the coding. It's just four on the floor. Yeah, In terms of the bass, this is really where a lot more went in terms of routing it and finding the notes. I kept it very straightforward. It was in its original form. Really is just keeping on that original note, which is the A. I think this is an A minor chord. I freaking remember did I even write it? I have not written it anywhere. Usually I write it, but it's an A, that's for sure. Whether it's an A, hold on, tell you in a second. Do I still have it here? Oh, it's definitely an A major. There's no dark keys there, so no minor keys, which means it's a major. But anyways, yeah. So what I did with the bass, as you can see here, the actual notes were pretty straightforward. So every eighth, yeah, every second eighth. So it's essentially off-putting of the kick. So you don't really have to side chain too much here because they were never really playing at the same time. The only time they really play is on this note here, the C, and this one here on the E. So those are the times they're really ever playing at the same time. So there wasn't much side chaining for me to do in this one, but nonetheless, just if you want to hear what that bass sounds like on its own. I mean, I kept it at its core. It was straightforward, and picking that sound wasn't anything too complicated. I found it as just a random stock mapping, which I then modified to my own liking. I changed a few things here in my UAD Polymax synth. So in terms of mixing on this one, here I had one of my early side chains. This was a Focusrite one that I used, compressor on it, reverb afterwards. Stuff is a bit of a mess, but anyways, ozone imager wasn't, I don't know if did I widen it or did I narrow it down? I made it wider, believe it or not, from here, okay. And shaper box is only on for the beginning, but what's it doing? Oh, okay, it's panning left to right. Interesting. And my EQ is nothing special. It's cutting out the low end because I did have a sub bass on this. So yeah, that's it for the main bass. For the sub bass, I mean, it's got a lot in it for a sub bass. It's pretty high up there in the sounds. Like I did scoop out the high end, but a lot of my sub basses nowadays don't even go past the 120 threshold here. So I had a lot in it. In terms, once again, this is from another. Oh, I used my BX Oberhausen here. Wait, Oberhausen? I don't even know how to pronounce that properly. But hey, if you're offended, I apologize. So yeah, once again, another side chain here. Again, I didn't really need it, as I mentioned, because they were never playing at the same time. Compressor, here I put a Camel Crusher just to really add some grit, because I really wanted it. If I take that out, I'm sure it doesn't sound the same. Yeah, it's minimal, but it's there. And yeah, my EQing wasn't anything special either. Now, if I listen to those basses together, it doesn't sound special when it's alone, now that I think about it, but this was, for me, just a very simple track. Not much going on in terms of complexity. That's the first drop. I mean, building into that, like, you really get a sense of what's coming because the build up to the actual first drop is pretty, like, substantial. Like, I cut out a lot of the low end going into it. Yeah, so that's kind of it in terms of the main elements. For the break or the build bass, I mean, I'm pretty sure I use the same one. Yeah, I use the same one from the core high bass, and all I did was lengthen the notes so it worked with the keys better. So nothing special here. I didn't have to side chain. This is another compressor. So I kept all the same effects here, but again, scooped out a little bit more of the low end because I didn't want it to be too loud, and I made it wide. I don't know why it's so wide. Yeah, like, it's nothing great. And even if I get out of the loop here, pretty sure I had it filtered to start. If I have this filters, yeah, I had it filtered to start low, so it builds up. from here to down there. Up here should be at its peak. But again, in the build-up, you know, you don't get it that too much, so it's really there. It's really there just to be there because I needed that low end, but it wasn't, you know, substantial. And then in the actual drop itself, again, didn't really change much, didn't add much here. But what I do want to mention is that I did change the notes. So these build notes here, as I said, follow the chords. But in the actual drop, what I did was I took that initial, you know, like that single note pattern, and all I did was take that A and I made it follow the chords. So if let's say I show you both these, and I just focus on bass notes, all I did was follow the chords. So it's the same pattern, but you know, you're following the actual chords if I play them together. Same pattern, but you're following a different note structure, and it really added something more. I'm surprised, you know, that worked so beautifully. And yeah, I mean, that's all I could really speak to. Oh, yeah, great. Before I forget, the kick and bass. This is a great preset of you know, of different buses that I have. This is what I call my kick and bass glue. I took this off someone on YouTube who I've been following for a while. You could copy all these settings if you like, but honestly, it's just a drum bus. I think it was a pretty out of the box drum bus from Ableton with a glue compressor, and really not much changed here. Just a soft clip, and then you know, get the threshold going to the point where if it was hitting, let's say around 2.5, and then put that makeup to cover it up, and then just see what that was doing on the initial gain or on the initial level of the track, and just put a utility to cut it down a bit. So, I mean, without it, it really is not the same. If I take this out, I think it just adds so much. So that's something I'll keep using for some time. And yeah, I think that's gonna be it for today's video. I'm, again, sorry if it's, you know, not the best script. I kind of just, you know, winged this one, besides testing the audio, but I hope, you know, this came across clear in this new setup. I'm glad you guys, at least some of you, got to hear the audio this time around, as opposed to in the past where, you know, I was just doing this without audio. Must have been really boring. But anyways, yeah, that's it for today. Hopefully this comes out nice. Hopefully you guys enjoy this, and if so, leave a like, leave a comment, share it if you like, and maybe I'll come back with another one on some of my other tracks that I've done, or cover every different aspects of this one. So thank you guys.